People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. And if you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you. This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you and a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust.
And I will say that Elon Musk is perhaps the world's leading spreader of disinformation, including outright lies about hurricane relief, about illegal immigrants. We've seen him do that in the last couple of weeks. And then on Saturday, he steps on stage with Donald Trump with one of the less athletic leaps I've ever seen as he bounded his way on stage with Trump. Tell us, and then spoke briefly on the former president's behalf. Tell us about that moment and what sort of you see. Yeah, he does not have much of a vertical, Mr. Musk.
So apparently MSNBC is for sale, and Donald Trump Jr. floated the idea to Elon Musk to buy it. To which Elon Musk responded back, how much?
Elon Musk's jumping ability is about to be the least of their concerns, as we might be seeing MSNBC bought by the billionaire. The network's rapid decline in ratings, as well as Comcast calling for a spinoff, is raising a lot of concern. We know that Rachel Maddow's already gotten a $5 million pay cut. It's also still up in the air as to which hosts and shows will be completely removed so as to cut down on costs. Now, these journalists may scoff at this idea of Musk buying MSNBC, but remember when this happened? Back in December 2017, Elon Musk admitted his love for Twitter, to which another user responded by saying, "You should buy them." Thus came the reply heard around the world, "How much is it?" Leading the billionaire to ultimately purchase Twitter for a cool $44 billion. And it actually felt as if he didn't even care about the cost. Price was of no concern. Elon Musk seemed much more interested in bringing back freedom of speech to Americans across the country.
Elon Musk's $44 billion Twitter takeover is just about a done deal. We expect it to close officially tomorrow, and it looks like he's ready to get to work, literally. Yesterday, he changed the title of his Twitter bio to Chief Twit. Then later, he barged into the social media giant headquarters carrying a sink, tweeting, "Let that sink in." Clever. And today, he addressed Twitter advertisers, tweeting this: "The reason I acquired Twitter is because it is important to the future of civilization to have a common digital town square where a wide range of beliefs can be debated in a healthy manner without resorting to violence. There is currently great danger that social media will splinter into far right and far left, creating an echo chamber that generates more hate and divides our society."
The possible purchase of MSNBC is already inspiring nightmare stories because some people are trying desperately to get away from Elon Musk, one of which is Joy Reid. She's already gotten off X, but I'm not sure if she's willing to leave her job. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with Joy Reid's work, but here's something to remind you of it.
Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. His survival of that and bouncing right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days, doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age.
Joy is not going to be so joyful if Elon Musk buys MSNBC, I'll tell you that, especially with her advanced TDS, because she forgot that the active shooter situation she's talking about actually killed an American. We also have to acknowledge that besides the president-elect, MSNBC has also been attacking Elon Musk. Now you gotta wonder, why are they so angry at the man that literally saved the First Amendment? And it's gotten so bad that MSNBC is insinuating that President Trump is pushing aside JD Vance for his buddy Elon Musk, trying to put a wedge between the president and vice president-elect. Now there's also negative messaging that's been used when it comes to Elon Musk, with left-leaning writers for MSNBC calling him a danger to Washington. If anything, Elon Musk is a danger to the jobs of these folks at the network. Now let me remind you that this guy fired almost 90% of the folks who are working at Twitter, and yet the app doesn't seem to have missed a beat. In fact, it's better than ever. And imagine MSNBC without the likes of Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski, replaced replace Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid with, I don't know, Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens. Or maybe even go so far as to give Joe Rogan some airtime to just kind of talk about anything and anyone he wants on air. Now, funnily enough, Joe Rogan responded to Elon Musk's question about how much MSNBC is right now. In a post on X, Joe Rogan said that he'd be willing to take Rachel Maddow's job, so long as he gets to wear the same outfit and glasses along with the same lies that she's said throughout the years. Rogan on his end has been giving mainstream liberal media the finger as of late. In fact, The View's Joy Behar talked about him recently, wherein he insinuated that Joe Rogan believes in dragons. And much like most of their smear campaigns, they came out of the gate as if things that they were saying were all based on facts. Watch.
We went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like, I guess, like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did.
Rogan really leaning into this one by changing his ex-bio to, quote, dragon believer. Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor, and he joins us now. This is so up Joe Rogan's alley in terms of what he finds funny, to, first of all, be called a dragon believer, and also to be accused of being an unreliable source of information by the ladies of The View. So what is your reaction to all of this?
Oh, yes, Carly. We should absolutely trust The View and not the guy who revolutionized the world with electric cars, SpaceX. I could go on with the accomplishments of Elon Musk. I have a question. Do stupid people get to a point in life where they realize that they're stupid? Because this is what panic sounds like in legacy media.
Now, just to clarify what Joe Rogan was talking about here, he was discussing dragons in different cultures and how unique they are from one another. He actually called the fire-breathing dragons as BS and said that the people from history must have seen something similar to Komodo dragons. So I guess Joy Behar should do a little bit more fact-checking before she runs off with her big fat mouth on air next time. ABC's probably going to axe their show pretty soon anyway because of stuff like this. And MSNBC is probably going to be gone soon because of write-ups like this one. The title of this article was Laken Riley's Killer Never Stood a Chance. Almost makes it seem like Laken Riley's killer was a victim. Now, I want you guys to let that sink in just for a second. An illegal immigrant who killed a U.S. citizen, one that had her whole life ahead of her, was being supported by MSNBC. In a post on X, Donald Trump Jr. wrote, "You literally can't make up this level of depravity. These people are sick. The guy's a murderer. He's an illegal alien that killed an innocent young woman, but MSNBC would rather go to bat for him. However much you hate MSNBC, it's not enough." So what are your guys' thoughts on this, guys? And just as Trump would, the president simply said no. And of course, we got to talk about how Republicans in the Senate are going to react to this. They have one of two options: agree with the president or commit political suicide. The American people are tired of this weaponization of government, especially within the Department of Justice and all these other branches. It's something that was blatantly exposed during this year's presidential election.
Attorney General, you've told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
If the people want results, and who are these officials in the Senate to deny them? And isn't it strange that the allegations against Gates got louder after Trump's nomination? Kind of funny how that works, right? And it's also worth noting that they've been investigating these allegations for more than 4 years. He's still a free man. The same way President-elect Trump is. Because the fact of the matter is that these allegations are nothing more than political distractions. And if they were serious about it and actually had hard evidence to prove it, then they would charge him. But that hasn't happened yet either. Which brings me to how Sunny Hostin is just struggling to understand why Matt Gaetz is even in a position to become Attorney General. Watch.
Well, statutory sex doesn't require you to know what age the person is. It only requires the age. And so if these things
So
are
wait a minute.
true...
So if you're having sex with an underage girl,
yes,
she tells you she's 18,
yes,
and you have it anyway, you're still liable.
Yes, you still
Okay.
are.
She's actually still only
it's
17.
statutory
Just to clarify.
rape. And so I'm deeply disturbed at the lack of judgment that we are already seeing from the president-elect.
But you're not
I'm not surprised, but I think a lot of people are. A lot of people said things like, he's just kidding. He would never do something
Well, this
like
is the
that.
best joke of all.
That's not true.
Because I'm crossing my fingers that this is going to be sweet justice.
Now, what boggles my mind is that Sunny Hostin seems to be so sure of what she's saying. Now, remember, guys, this is national television, and slander is still a form of oral defamation. Now, you'd have to think that these ladies are going to get sued one of these days, which I guess explains why ABC suddenly had a change of heart, because they've let these women go out for years and lie about people that they don't like. They've done it multiple times with Trump and most of his allies. Something that's probably gonna stop because ABC basically told Sunny to fall in line. This happened within the halfway mark of this episode, and I know I showed it to you guys a little while ago, but it's just too good to just watch once.
Sonny, you have a legal note. I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. The DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
Now you gotta wonder what they told her to make her say that. We know for a fact that they despise Matt Gaetz. But if this DOJ didn't charge him after all this time, then why is Sunny Hostin acting as if he was already guilty? This is where the network took over, and it's probably a good thing that they had this legal note. Now I'm guessing ABC is playing things safe since ratings aren't doing as hot as they used to.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
That must have been a pretty bitter pill to swallow. It's kind of like we saw her taking in all of her pride in that one single moment where she paused. And you saw how fast they turned that around because it was a, quote, legal note. So I'm kind of thinking that mainstream liberal media will be on its toes whenever they try to lie on national television now. Because there will be a time when these people will be held accountable for their lies and their misinformation. And I really hope that this time comes soon, because it's crazy to think that we live in a world where you're just free to just accuse anybody of anything that you want. It's something that they did to President Trump a ton during the course of his presidential run. And now it's being applied to most of his cabinet members because they know for a fact that these people are here to work. Watch.
The President-elect Donald Trump absolutely has a constitutional right to nominate him, and the Senate has the role of advise and consent. If there is one person they're going to block, I would guess it'd be Matt Gaetz. And I think the way they'll do it is they'll say, let's not make this your problem, Donald Trump. I'm just going to say the votes aren't there. Put someone else up who can get through. I think the most likely scenario would be it's the Deputy Attorney General he's appointed, his criminal defense attorney, Todd Blanche, who, whatever you think of him appointing his criminal defense attorney, he has the qualifications to be there. He's a former federal prosecutor. He worked for the Southern District of New York. But Matt Gaetz is a person of low moral character. This is widely known about him. And I'm kind of bullish he's not going to get through.
Yeah, you know, I think what we really need to think about is the position that he has been nominated for by this president elect. To be the Attorney General means that you're responsible for the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice is one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the world. And it's very serious business.
Just to let you guys know why Trump is picking Matt Gaetz, it's because he gets shit.
There are growing calls tonight for Disney to fire Rachel Ziegler, the star of its widely anticipated Snow White remake. It's because of an anti-Donald Trump post she made after the election, writing, quoting here, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." Ziegler is now apologizing. She writes in a new post, let my emotions get the best of me, and I am sorry, contributed to the negative discourse.
What has happened to Disney? I remember back in the day when we were looking for hidden Mickeys in movies. Now they're the new symbol for a woke generation. And Rachel Ziegler perfectly portrays this kind of star power that Disney is hiring. You know she's a DEI hire when she herself detests the movie that she's in. She's supposed to be the fairest of them all, Snow White. Yet she feels as if the history of this story is flawed. Now again, she's not a writer or anything, she's an actress. An actress that believes that she's above everybody else and that her political beliefs outweigh those of others. I think Megyn Kelly did it best when she talked about Zegler's hateful post on this video. Watch.
Picture a Broadway actress who issued a post saying, F Biden supporters. May Biden or Kamala never have a moment's peace. That person would be fired so fast it would make your head spin. They wouldn't last one more minute in any Hollywood role. This is truly like, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go. And you're going to put out a Disney film with Snow White, a beloved American character, with a woman who hates more than half the country, the half that just elected Donald Trump. This is an incredible pivot point right now. We'll see which way the woke Disney decides to go.
Now, if we go by the numbers, there's a high possibility that this girl is never hired by Disney ever again. Just to give you guys an idea here, their trailer for this film has around 10 million views and less than 100,000 likes. You may not see it on your browser, but the trailer now has more than 1 million downvotes. And if you go through the comments, you'll see exactly what people think about Zegler. So here's one. I've never gone to the trouble of disliking a YouTube video before. For this, I made an exception. There's a lot of comments here that talk about her disdain for Trump. There's around 70,000 comments at the moment, guys. I'm thinking this is going to shoot through the roof as Disney faces even more pressure to let this girl go. One crazy comment even went so far as to say, I'm rooting for the poison apple. Now, it's also worth noting that the most replayed part of the video is the very beginning, meaning that people clicked on the video, paused it, then went over to the comment section to say whatever it was that they wanted to say, which is kind of brave for Disney to do because as far as we know, the comment section is still open for everyone. Now, before we get to her apology, one that's probably AI generated for all we know, I do want to talk about this hateful rhetoric. I have to say that half the country should never know peace is kind of a big deal because if you ask Trump supporters right now, they would tell you that they're perfectly at peace with what happened during this year's election, with many of them being assured that the next 4 years will be much kinder than the last. But Zegler's anger and hate has spawned even more from her supporters. In a post that showed her apology, a supporter of the actress said that she should be able to shoot 5 Trump supporters a day, and that she shouldn't be apologizing for anything. Now, we can't be sure of this person's political beliefs, but I think it's safe to say that they don't like President Trump or his supporters. But to call for reckless violence against Americans is just never a good thing, because we can understand that people are free to have their own opinions, right? I think it's actually healthy to have different points of view, but that should never encourage you to harm people who don't agree with you. Now, let's talk about that apology for a second. She posted this on Instagram where she wrote, "Hi everyone, I would like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on my Instagram last week. I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding. And I'm sorry I contributed to the negative discourse." Now again, guys, I gotta say this for our own sanity. These are the people who claim that Trump is the guy who's been pushing hate and creating division with the United States. The very people who are pushing hate and who are creating division and danger with the United States. Oh, the hypocrisy, right? The same guy who wants the country to be united. I mean, guys, it's just crazy to think that they're pinning all of this wrath on a man who literally just wants to help work for the American people. And speaking of work, there's a good chance that Zegler won't find any new work in the future. Her film Snow White has been delayed by so many different factors. There was a scandal about Disney replacing the 7 dwarfs with magical creatures of all sizes and genders. When people turned on Disney, they decided to fire all those actors and instead opted for CGI generated dwarves.
Disney's Snow White remake that was supposed to be coming out in 2024 is now going to be coming out in 2025, and it seems like they've taken in some of the backlash and made some changes. Y'all remember the 7 magical diversity hires that were put together to replace the 7 dwarves that we know and love? Well, a new shot from the film shows that they've brought back the 7 dwarves and they're now CGI. And since the film is not coming out till 2025, it seems like they have plenty of time to go and edit and reshape the plot. We all know that Rachel Zegler, who's playing Snow White, is famous for saying this about the storyline.
Prince. She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
She single-handedly managed to describe a plot that absolutely nobody in their right mind was asking for when they thought about Snow White. And I get it, it's not entirely her fault. Disney has a clear agenda. But if they've taken in the backlash and decided to change out the dwarfs, what else are they going to change for the 2025 release?
Because I guess they realized that the dwarves were an integral part of the story. and maybe there weren't enough woke supporters to support the idea. But when that was cleared up, Snow White just had to come in and ruin everything again. We all know the story of Snow White. Zegler on her end doesn't like it though. She thinks that the prince is a creepy stalker and that the entire premise of the story is misogynistic. Watch.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I'm not sure if she's predicted her own future at the end there. And with her talking about a colleague being cut completely from their movie, it just shows what kind of values she holds. And as you've heard, it was supposed to be released this year, but the film's release has now been moved to 2025, which means that things could still change. With Disney spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this thing already, I think it's pretty obvious that they don't want it to bomb. This is a big investment for Disney. But with her in the leading role, expect more than half the country to boycott this film. What do you guys think? Are you excited? The great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, you know, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you know, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. I mean, but this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I mean, I'm now at a point where, you know, like, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like-minded people. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. 6 digits spent on ice cream and delivery, not to mention rumors of a paid pollster. What did Kamala Harris do, you guys? Well, you remember that Iowa pollster that dropped a surprise poll showing Harris winning the state all of a sudden? Well, it turns out that top pollster is now retiring after her supposedly mistaken prediction. Watch.
The pollster is retiring. We are talking about this big veteran pollster, Ann Seltzer, who put out this big, really a lot of people were talking about it, where they're like, okay, is Kamala having a play at Iowa where it had her up by 4 points? That didn't turn out to be the case, but now we are learning that the veteran pollster Ann Seltzer announced that she was done with the election polling and moving on to other ventures after her pre-election poll in Iowa inaccurately showed Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of President-elect Donald Trump in the state he had easily won in 2016 and 2020. Over a year ago, I advised the Register I would not renew when my 2024 contract expired with the latest election poll as I transitioned to other ventures and opportunities, Seltzer explained in an op-ed on Sunday in the Des Moines Register. So that is what a lot of people are talking about now, truly here. And some on social media were saying, okay, did this have anything to do with her maybe retiring and then wanting to put out something that was maybe pro-Harris? Well, that she is rebuffing that and saying, no, I had this planned for a while.
She said that she had this plan for a while, but do we really believe her? Hearing about this news, President-elect Trump commented on Truth Social that what she did was a totally fake poll and it caused great distrust and uncertainty at a very critical time. And for Trump, the Iowa pollster knew exactly what she was doing. And he didn't miss a beat either. He said, "Thank you to the great people of Iowa for giving me such a record-breaking vote, despite possible election fraud by Ann Selzer and the now discredited newspaper for which he works." He also said that an investigation is fully called for. Honestly, all I know right now is finally America is unburdened by what has been. But more precisely, we're now unburdened from that has been. You know what I mean? I mean, just look at the wastefulness that they're uncovering in the Harris campaign, spending on private jets and ice cream, all these crazy things. Watch.
Despite raising $1.6 billion, Harris's team not only lost to Donald Trump, but is now $20 million in debt. And reckless spending is a major reason for that, as a new report reveals shocking details. The Telegraph claimed the campaign spent $24,000 on food delivery and ice cream. Uber Eats and DoorDash accounted for nearly $15,000, while more than $8,900 was spent on premium ice creams from Sweet Lucy's and Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams. A $6,000 fee went to Arizona's Snakes and Lattes board game cafe for a Tim Walz visit. Private jet travel was another glaring expense. The vice president's team spent $12 million in private flights. In fact, between October 1st and October 17th alone, $2.6 million went to firms like Private Jet Services Group and Advanced Aviation Team. Critics slammed Harris's hypocrisy after she repeatedly called climate change an existential threat. And it wasn't just lavish lifestyle, but even celebrity endorsements drained funds. Last week, an American political commentator asked pop star Cardi B if she was paid to deliver a speech at Harris's rally. Now, Cardi B immediately swung into action, rubbished the reports and claimed that she wasn't paid. Oprah Winfrey, who hosted a Harris town hall, also denied claims of a $1 million payment. The production company, Harpo Productions, clarified it was paid $1 million for production expenses, not Winfrey herself. Extravagant choices extended to ad campaigns and events as well. The campaign spent a staggering $900,000 to reserve ad space at the Las Vegas Sphere, only to lose Nevada by 3 points.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, guys, no party that wastes $1 billion on a couple of months campaign should ever be in charge of anything. What do you think? Plus, the sheer amount of donor money that they wasted on celebrity endorsements, it's just overwhelming.
Ran an incredibly inspired campaign.
Inspired and in debt. Reportedly about $20 million worth after blowing through $1 billion in 110 days. Event production, including concerts and a sit-down with Oprah, cost $15 million. Influencers got $3.9 million. And Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network got $500,000.
Even my 3 teenage kids told me that brat girl summer is over. So why are you spending millions of dollars on Megan Thee Stallion twerking?
So the emails and texts asking supporters for money continue. The DNC tells Fox in a statement, the DNC's work continues in earnest past Election Day, and so our fundraising is continuing as well. Fundraising first, then messaging.
There is universal frustration in this country. Much of it, I actually think, justified.
See, even AOC admits that there's a lot of frustration in this country, and this lavish spending by the Harris-Walz campaign certainly doesn't help their case as a party. Oh yeah, and by the way, breaking news, guys, it turns out Oprah Winfrey's production company wasn't paid $1 million after all. It was even bigger at nearly $2.5 million for the celeb-packed town hall that it hosted, more than double the initial estimate reported. This was confirmed by two people familiar with the matter who told the New York Times. But still, guys, the TV star has denied receiving any personal payments from the Democrats team, and a former advisor to the Harris campaign also said that they did not pay anyone for their appearances or support. Oprah Winfrey said it was set design, lights, cameras, crews, producers, and every other item necessary, including the benches and the chairs that they sat on, in order to put on a live production, and that she didn't take any personal fees. So $2.5 million for a set and lights. Oh, and don't forget the benches and the chairs, right? Those are probably folding chairs from Walmart. Yeah, talk about out of touch. Remember when they made headlines? Everybody was talking about the Harris campaign broke records for the most donations compiled in the shortest amount of time. Now, it's also likely one of the most expensive to date, with her campaign blowing through $1.5 billion in 15 weeks, not to mention saddling the Democratic Party with $20 million in debt. Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump trounced Harris in the election, garnering 312 electoral votes. His estimated budget? $720 million. Now, what does that say about Democrats as a party? Basically, that they seem to just want to party. Am I right, guys? Because it wasn't just these celebrity endorsements. Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign shelled out $2.6 million on private jet travel in the final dying gasps of her presidential run, bringing her failed campaign's total tally on the environmentally unfriendly mode of transportation to a staggering $12 million. These are the same people who are trying to push us to go green. Unbelievable, guys. It's even worse when you think about how private jets, which can be up to 14 times more polluting than commercial flights, they fly in the face of their 2019 doom, saying that the global warming is an existential threat to humanity, as well as her own calls on the campaign trail for Americans to reduce their carbon emissions to stop global warming. Meanwhile, they're rolling up in private jets, constantly destroying our ozone layer. How hypocritical, right? Hypocrisy is what my uncle will call it. Benji Backer, founder and executive chairman of the American Conservation Coalition, also said the exact same thing. Kamala Harris and a lot of pro-climate leaders have a lot of hypocrisy with the words that they state and the realities that they must think are real. For him, there's just so much hypocrisy coming from the elitists that everyone else needs to change their lives except for them. And if you think we're done, nope, not even close. I know some of this was already mentioned in the clips, but I think they bear repeating. $12,097 on food delivery from Uber Eats, DoorDash since July. At least $12,081 on ice cream pints in parlors like Sweet Lucy's Ice Cream, Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams after President Biden was booted from the top of the ticket. $6,000 for a site fee at the Board Game Cafe Snakes and Lattes in Tempe, Arizona, where Minnesota Governor Tim Walz made a campaign stop to press college students to turn out on election day. $62,772 in room and catering fees at the posh five-star Hotel DuPont in Wilmington, Delaware, when Biden's still running for office. A luxury king bed room complete with soaking tub currently runs $500 a night. $9,600 on food and drinks at Pebble Bar near Rockefeller Center, which counts celebs Pete Davidson in March, also while Biden was still the Democratic presidential nominee. As GOP consultant Aaron Perrin put it, nobody should be shocked that Kamala Harris is not being sworn in on January 20. Instead of getting the message out, they wanted to have a party. It's not how this works. And on top of all that, the campaign gave out over $5.6 million to 24 lefty groups, a number of them Black or Latino advocacy groups or based in swing states she ended up losing. All of this to help push her agenda and rouse voters. And they're mad over Elon Musk's $1 million giveaways of his own money? Give me a break, guys. At least this was his money and his spending, not other donors. You know what I mean? But really, the crux of the matter is that despite the Harris's campaign's monstrous spending, which combined with aligned interest groups amounted to $1.6 billion, Trump made gains in every state of the union except for Washington since 2020 as he cruised to an election victory. Team Harris, meanwhile, they found themselves somehow saddled with $20 million in debt. And they just ended up outraging Democrats who are now finger pointing at one another and demanding accountability. Well, You know what they say, point one finger and you got three fingers pointing right back at you. Drop a quick yes in the comments, guys. Hit the like button if you guys agree. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tap the notification bell to show your support. All right, so further proof that America's tired of the Democratic Party and the likes of Kamala Harris, the fact that deep blue New York and New Jersey saw the largest shifts nationwide toward President-elect Trump in the 2024 election. More precisely, Dave Wasserman, a senior editor and elections analyst with the nonpartisan Cook Political Report, they found an 11.5% swing toward Trump in the Empire State and similarly impressive 10.1% movement in the Republicans' favor in the Garden State compared to the 45th president's 2020 results. Florida, 9.8%, Massachusetts, 8.7%, California, 8.4%, Texas, 8.3%, Mississippi, 7.7%, Rhode Island, 7%, Tennessee, 6.5%, and Illinois, 6.4% rounded out the top 10. And boy, did Trump make his mark in the blue states. Now, granted, a Republican presidential candidate hasn't won the Democratic stronghold of New Jersey since 1988. It's been even longer in New York, where the last Republican to win was Ronald Reagan in his 1984 landslide over Walter Mondale. But you know what the New Jersey GOP tweeted shortly after Trump's election day win over Vice President Kamala Harris? That New Jersey has become a swing state. Garden State GOP Chairman Bob Hugin said that Democrats have abandoned the working class and it's our opportunity to govern now. New York GOP Chairman Ed Cox added to that and said that under President-elect Donald Trump's leadership, Republicans have broadened our coalition and brought a once-in-a-lifetime shift in our voter base, drawing in working-class Americans, voters of color, and younger citizens disillusioned with the status quo. For Cox, New York may be a blue state, but it's a working class blue state, not a progressive, not a woke blue state. And like most of America, they see their state as one where working class families, they want safe neighborhoods, they want affordable housing, good schools, and economic opportunity. Because see, as they pointed out, while Democrats are pushing radical policies and government overreach, from gender ideology in kids' sports to banning gas stoves, New Yorkers are concerned about the dual crises of inflation and illegal immigration. And nobody understands that more than President-elect Trump. In fact, if you noticed, he even made a play for both New York and New Jersey on the campaign trail. He held a massive rally in Wildwood, New Jersey in May that drew an estimated crowd of around 80 to 100,000 people, a record for a Garden State political rally. Trump followed that up with rallies in South Bronx, at Croatia Park, and Madison Square Garden in Midtown Manhattan. Who knows? We may see a red New York or a red New Jersey in the near future, guys. What do you say? You guys ready to welcome that to the fold?
We're going to start with some breaking news on President-elect Donald Trump's hush money conviction. That's the case here in New York. District Attorney Alvin Bragg informing the judge that his office agrees with Trump's defense team that a stay in the case is appropriate, at least for now.
Legal dominoes continue to fall in President-elect Trump's favor as prosecutors agreed sentencing in his hush money case should be delayed. Trump was scheduled to be sentenced in Manhattan next week, but after he won the election and the Supreme Court ruled presidents have broad immunity, both sides agreed the sentence should be delayed until after Trump completes his second term in office in the year 2029.
This is similar to that song of DJ Khaled, All I Do Is Win. The president-elect is just on a roll as things have turned 180 for him with most, if not all, of his cases against him. Cases that were all conveniently happening one after another. Y'all saw the pattern. And all it took was for the majority of the country to vote him into the White House. That's all it took. Easy enough, right? Strong sarcasm. But this has to be pretty disheartening for Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. But even with them practically giving up, they're saying that they don't want the case to be dismissed completely. Although Trump's legal team has already raised the flag of victory. In a post from the Trump-Vance transition team, Stephen Chang, Trump's communication director, he had this to say. This is a total and definitive victory for President Trump and the American people who elected him in a landslide. The Manhattan DA has conceded that this witch hunt cannot continue. The lawless case is now stayed and President Trump's legal team is moving to get it dismissed once and for all. Now, departing from the norm, Alvin Bragg, he actually signed the filing himself, saying that they respect the office of the president, adding that they're mindful of the demands and obligations of the presidency, and acknowledge that the defendant's inauguration will raise unprecedented legal questions. Judge Juan Merchan now has two options: push back the sentencing or toss Trump's conviction altogether. He can also choose to move forward despite Trump winning the presidency, but doing so might not win him any favors. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys remember that this judge has been questioned multiple times regarding this case, especially when it came down to how he benefited from this through his daughter, who worked with top Democrats. Democrats who gave his daughter millions upon millions of dollars, which means that investigations into Juan Marchand will be inevitable. And it's not like Alvin Bragg's team's going to be waiting for the next 4 years to try and drag this thing out as long as they can. That in and of itself would be a problem because it's possible that we can get a Justice Department that actually doles out justice. The idea of throwing legal cases against Trump right now as he's announced his run for presidency, this was a major red flag. A red flag that has been called election interference by many political analysts. Even Bragg himself is problematic because Manhattan's filled with crime while he's trying to get a former president put in jail. Doesn't make any sense. A former president who's now president-elect. And remember that this is supposed to be a misdemeanor. They raised it to a felony because they say that Trump hid a second crime. A crime that they haven't even revealed until this day. They don't even know what the crime is. But here's the best part. We're seeing liberals on CNN coping with the reality of this case being thrown out. They're even holding out hope that things change within the next 4 years.
Well, a lot can happen. A lot can change in 4 years.
A lot can, and this makes a lot of sense. I mean, at this point, there really is no rush from the court's perspective to get to a sentencing, given the fact that the president is going to be stepping into office, given the fact that he absolutely was going to appeal this case just on the merits of it itself, in terms of the legal questions and the legal theory that the prosecutors brought this case on, and then added to that the additional challenges that he would bring based on the Supreme Court's immunity decision. So even without the immunity decision, I think he would have appealed anyway, just on the interpretations of New York law, and then added to that the Supreme Court decision that he has immunity now that he is reelected and will step back into office in January.
So they're hoping that things change within Trump's last term as president, which would give Alvin Bragg just enough ammunition to go after him again. But this isn't lawfare though, right? All Bragg wants is justice, right? I think Judge Janine summed it up perfectly because she knows that even the DA is aware of how crazy all this looks at this point. Watch.
Well, I think it's absurd. And I think that, Juan Marchand was originally, in my mind, a pro-prosecution judge. Now Juan Marchand is an anti-Trump judge. There is sufficient basis to dismiss this case. But instead, Juan Marchand, who was conflicted from the beginning of this and should never have been allowed to handle this case by the administrative judge of the courts, was allowed to handle this case. He gets a conviction on an absurd case that's not real. It's a make-believe case barred by the statute of limitation, bootstrapped by a federal crime over which he has no jurisdiction, and then with a verdict sheet that no one understands. And now he says, look, I'm willing to wait the 4 years so that we can continue to have Donald Trump, the president of the United States, be awaiting sentences on his conviction for 34 felony counts that are ridiculous, absurd, and everyone knows it. Now you've got Bragg who's saying, we want to continue this thing. So Juan Marchand now has to have a hearing and decide whether or not those arguments of Bragg are appropriate to continue this case. The Supreme Court's decision within a month of the conviction, and again, there is no conviction unless and until there's a sentencing, that decision reels right into this case because so much of this case was part of the Oval Office, Hope Hicks, Madeleine Westerhout. So much of that evidence the prosecution admitted was essential to their case goes out immediately based upon the Supreme Court's decision. Now let's talk about the fact that there's a 330 motion for dismissal of the charges, which Marchand could grant immediately by establishing some kind of precedent and saying, you know what, from now on, when there's a president in the Oval Office, irrespective of when the jury verdict came down, the case has to be dismissed. And, temporary immunity, according to Alvin Bragg, doesn't require dismissal post-trial. I mean, this is so full of hate. This is so out of sync with the American public and what they want. Alvin Bragg, Juan Marchand, the two of them brought Donald Trump, they thought, to his knees. They thought that they would put this man in jail. They thought they were heroes and would swing an election. They are one of the reasons that Donald Trump got elected, because the American people do not believe in this kind of justice. This is what happens in third world countries, and Alvin Bragg continues to prove it. And Juan Merchan right now doesn't have the spine. He doesn't know what he's going to do.
This is not sitting well with liberals, as they're raging against the idea of Trump not being a convicted felon, especially since many within the far left have made this the center of their argument, saying that Trump is a convicted felon that should not be allowed back into the White House. Now, if things go well with this case, then that argument goes out the window too. Now, since we already talked about New York a whole bunch, I got a huge update with both Mayor Eric Adams and Whoopi Goldberg. Just make sure you guys check out one of my previous videos where I talk about both of them and how Whoopi Goldberg just made a bakery very, very rich. I know. But as always, thank you guys for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing. Check out this video coming up here next, and I'll see you guys on the next one.